It's fair to say Peter Dutton has had a pretty rocky couple of weeks in politics. His attempt to seize the Liberal leadership from the Prime Minister failed, and he's since been embroiled in a scandal about his decisions as Immigration Minister to free 2 young foreign nannies who were detained at airports. The federal Labor opposition wants the minister to front a Senate investigation beginning in Canberra tomorrow. And now 2 former immigration officials have raised further questions about his conduct. Aislinn McGee reports.
I'm a person of high integrity. I pride myself in that. If there are cases where people can point to that I've done something illegal or immoral, point to them.
Peter Dutton's lost the immigration portfolio, but he can't shake the questions about some of his past decisions.
It just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good.
AFL boss Gillan McLachlan's a man with friends in high places.
Thanks for coming on. No, it's good, it's great.
It came in handy in late 2015 when his cousin's nanny, Alexandra Duell, was detained at Adelaide Airport.
I was contacted by my cousin. He was trying to get in touch with the office and he asked for my help and I facilitated that.
The young French woman had told officials she planned to work while on a tourist visa and had suspicions about her in the past. Alexandra Duell has been counselled previously with respect to work restrictions when suspicions were aroused on her previous arrival.
Hello, I'm Jude.
Gillan McLachlan asked his head of government relations, Jude Donnelly, who used to work for Tony Abbott, to plead the case with Peter Dutton. And within hours, the nanny was free as a tourist.
To say that I've got some, situation where I've helped out a friend, or it's complete garbage, and it should be called out for that.
It wasn't the first time he'd helped an au pair in distress. Earlier in 2015, Italian nanny Michelle Marchisio was detained in Brisbane on suspicion she was going to work while on a tourist visa. She was also freed on Mr Dutton's order. 7:30 went to the home of her prospective employers. Peter Dutton's former police colleague Russell Keeg and his wife Nicole.
Hi.
Hello, Nicole, is it?
Yes.
Well, we just wanted to know how you contacted Peter Dutton about that case.
I can't comment.
Okay, then, all right.
The 2 men worked together as Queensland policemen some 20 years ago.
I can't recall that I've ever had a conversation with him or socialised since then with him. He didn't have my mobile number, didn't have my private email address.
Unfortunately, we don't know how many au pairs are in Australia at the moment because there's no dedicated visa. If we had a visa, we would be able to look at the number of au pairs who are coming in with a family at any one time and to be able to report back on that.
Ministerial intervention powers aren't new. By law, immigration ministers can override nearly any decision, and that includes freeing people held in immigration detention. It happened about 450 times in the 3 years to December 2017. But what's more unusual is freeing tourists held in detention. That only happened on 26 occasions. Anyone can approach the minister's office for assistance, but it's at the minister's discretion whether to help out.
The minister should not be intervening in this kind of thing. The intervention powers are very valuable, and I feel that it's a bit of a lack of respect for the system that allows for compassionate circumstances in very extreme cases, not in this kind of case.
Viviana Barrio spent 23 years with the Immigration Department, including 3 in charge of Melbourne Airport's immigration, where she regularly detained tourists she suspected would try to work.
I would say perhaps a dozen people a week.
And they were sent home?
They were sent home straight after the cancellation was done.
And did any minister ever intervene to stop that?
Not the 3 years that I was at Melbourne Airport.
She also spent the 5 years to 2013 in charge of ministerial intervention cases, which she says usually had strong public interest or compassionate grounds.
I feel that the public is being told that these cases are similar to a number of other cases, and the minister has the power to intervene, and they do that every day, and there's I don't know how many cases that the minister has done, but these cases are not like any other one. They are quite different.
Where is the public interest in allowing that particular person to come into Australia?
Until last year, Greg Phillipson was a senior lawyer in the Immigration Department, where he'd served for 30 years.
I'd say it'd be quite unusual for a minister to intervene in that circumstance, because normally the worst that can happen is that the person's visit to Australia is cut short and they go home.
He says if Mr Dutton was a departmental official, he wouldn't have been able to decide these cases because of his links to the applicants.
The usual situation is you declare the interest and you say it's not appropriate for me to make this decision because I know, I know these people, and it seems like those sort of guidelines, they're impartiality guidelines. Those sort of guidelines don't seem to apply to ministers.
It's a very rare occurrence that a minister intervenes, particularly in these cases around the au pairs. And I think that until he does give a full explanation, there will be people questioning his integrity.
A Labor-led Senate inquiry is investigating Mr Dutton's decisions. It's holding its first hearing tomorrow.
We have invited him. We're still waiting for him to respond. We've asked the relevant staff in his office to come. We've invited them. They haven't responded either. I think he should come to the Senate committee and I think he should explain.
Ministers before me, during my time as Immigration Minister as well, you act on cases based on the merit of the case, but to say that I had some personal link or that I was acting on behalf of somebody that I was personally associated with is a complete nonsense.
Mr Dutton's facing a challenge in the lower house too.
I asked him earlier on this year, can you rule out any connection between you and the people that you helped out with the au pairs? Peter Dutton stood up in Parliament and categorically ruled out any personal connection between him and the people he helped with au pairs. Then he went on radio and said that one of those people was a former police colleague of his. Now, you can't square those answers.
The Greens are threatening a no-confidence motion.
The floor of the House will decide whether or not it's got confidence in the minister.
If it decides it doesn't, Mr Dutton would be sent to the backbench. But that's unlikely. There's never been a successful vote of no confidence in a minister.
When it comes to questions of confidence in Mr Dutton, I believe he has the confidence of the Australian people and certainly of his team to ensure that we keep our borders secure.
The Prime Minister's standing by his man.
And we've repeatedly invited Peter Dutton to join the program during the past fortnight, including tonight. He's been unavailable. In a statement, he said any suggestion of a personal connection or relationship in either case is false or misleading. You can read the full statement on our website.